So now let us see some of these concepts in action. Here is the version that we used in our earlier lab. The customer class that you see here does not have private modifiers. So we are setting the values using the variable name directly as shown here. So we instantiated the customer and then set the value for the name variable using this dot operator directly or setting the value. Here we are setting the customer ID, and here the address, and here the total. And when you print out the customer name using this expression, you would expect it to show John on the console. So let's see if that really happens. So Java C, my program, Java, my program. There you go. This John is coming from line number 11, and that's because name variable is set to John. Of course, you can print out rest of the variables and you can find out what the values are, and it would all show the values that it was initialized to. And now let's make the John private here in the customer class. And I'm going to save it and I'm going to compile this. What do you see? When you try to compile it, it threw a compile error. It's saying name has a private access in customer, so it's not able to set. So it's showing this line number 6 in which we are directly accessing name with the dot operator, but name is a private variable. So this is the whole point of private. You're not supposed to do something like this with the strict object-oriented principles, because you're in my program. This is a completely different program, and this program is able to set the variable which belongs to the customer class directly. So this is not acceptable as per object-oriented principles. Instead, you should have a method. There are two options. Either you can have a method which sets the variable name, or you can have a constructor which sets the variable name. Now let's do the method way. So the method will start with public void set name, and void because we don't want this method to return anything, and set name will take a string, which is, we'll call it as name, and this dot name represents this variable that we declare for the instance of this customer class. So this dot name equal to name. What it means is the variable that is declared here is being initialized to the value that is sent from the method argument. So the method argument is getting a name, and that name is being set to the instance variable of this class. And now we finished this. Let's now change this line to use the method instead of directly using the name. So get rid of that name, and now you say set name and then John. Of course, you don't need this anymore, so get rid of this whole thing. And now you save it and compile it. Oh, I said set name and then it is having a get name here. So let me change this to set name. There is no get name at this point. It's only set name. Oops, it's not saved. Okay, now it's saying that part is fine. It jumped that hoop where it's no longer complaining that you can't set the name. But since I'm directly accessing the name here, it's complaining about that. So let's put a getter method so that we are able to get the value that is stored. And now it has to obviously return a string. Now we'll put a get name here, and this doesn't take any arguments. All it does is returns whatever is there in the name variable. That's all it does. So now we are going to compile this again. And oh, sorry, here we should change this to get name. And now we are going to compile this again. This time it compiled fine, and I'm now going to run it, and it's working. So what did we do? So what we'll end up doing is, instead of directly accessing a variable with this dot operator, we created a setName method, which is basically doing that. So the setName method is actually setting the value to the name variable. And then instead of directly getting the value from the dot operator, we are using a getName method, which is returning the value. Well, in this simple example, not much is happening. So it's not very prominent as to why we should do this. But in the next several lessons, you will realize that this is a very, very powerful concept, and we will also understand why. But for now, we put a getter and a setter for this name variable so that we can use those methods instead of directly using the dot operator. And by doing so, we have encapsulated the variables of the customer class so that those variables are set by some method inside the customer class and not from any other class.